Strange disappearances of NBA stars that they won't tell you about. The NBA, just like any other sport, is a luxury to play in. It is a league where no one is safe. You can go from a hero and a star in your city to never being heard from again, in as quickly as a year. These are the cases for the 6 poor men who were at the top of the world in the NBA, and then left without a trace. STEPHON MARBURY. MARBURY was part of the coveted 1996 draft class. Along with him, stars like Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, and Marcus Camby were also in his draft class. Even with the Hall of Fame talent that his peers had, STEPHON was still the 4th overall pick of the 1996 NBA draft. He had a successful NBA career for his first 14 seasons, being a consistent 20-point scorer for multiple years. However, in his 15th year, disaster struck. Marbury signed with the Boston Celtics in 2007, the prime of the team's championship run. Being led by Rajon Rondo, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett, there would be no place for STEPHON to fit in the starting rotation. However, this was a new thing for Marbury. For almost every single game of his career, if he participated in the game, he was a starter. This would require some major adjusting, and his new role, combined with his lack of opportunity in production, led him to averaging an abysmal 3.8 points on 34% field goal percentage, and an even worse 24% three-point percentage. After this season, he completely disappeared from the NBA. The two-time All-Star went on to play basketball in China, in the hope that it would give him a chance to revive his NBA career. While his time in China was not enough for him to end up back on an NBA roster, he was the biggest name in Chinese basketball for the entire time he played overseas. Marbury dominated the Chinese league to the point that he would end up being a 3-time champion. Also, he would end up being the last remaining active player in the 1996 draft class. So although STEPHON disappeared from the NBA, he made a name for himself elsewhere, and did not look back. LAMAR ODOM. The disappearance of LAMAR ODOM is easily the saddest out of all that will be covered. He was a consistent scorer and a spectacular defensive player. ODOM was someone that was secure enough in his abilities to embrace a bench role. This confidence led him to be a key piece on championship teams. He won 2 back-to-back championships with the Los Angeles Lakers. The year after the second championship, ODOM was named the 6th Man of the Year, distinguishing him as the greatest bench player in the league. In the playoffs, the Lakers were eliminated by the eventual NBA champion Dallas Mavericks. Despite being one of the key pieces to the Lakers' success, he was traded to the Mavericks after the playoffs. This was detrimental to ODOM and his mental health. Phil Jackson, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, and the Lakers organization meant the world to LAMAR, and being traded from the team killed a little piece of him. In his next 2 years in the league, ODOM was a non-factor on the Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers. After his final season with the Clippers, ODOM disappeared from the league at only 33 years old. Sadly, ODOM did find his way back in the spotlight. However, it was one of the worst ways imaginable. He was found unconscious in a brothel in Nevada. It was later discovered that he had survived multiple strokes, kidney failure, and a coma. He says that being traded from the Lakers effectively ended his career and purpose, and is something that still haunts him today. Steve Francis. Steve Francis was an extremely promising young player. However, his refusal to step out of the spotlight was ultimately what caused his disappearance from the league. Francis always had his heart in the right place. However, with that being said, some of the decisions he made throughout his career caused him to be deemed selfish and a diva by many. The first would be he refused to play for the Vancouver Grizzlies after being drafted by them with the 2nd overall pick. This move was scrutinized, however. Steve had noble reasons for this. He did not want to uproot his grandmother from Maryland to live in Vancouver, or make her travel all the way to a different country just to see her grandson play. Once with the Rockets, Steve put on a show. He was a high-scoring and high-flying point guard for Houston. He was branded the franchise, as he had the ability to turn a poorer average team into a great team. Despite the implications of this nickname, Francis only made the playoffs once in his entire decade-long career. After 3 consecutive All-Star appearances and 1 playoff appearance with the Rockets, Steve was traded to the Orlando Magic, where he would average 21.3 points per game. However, after a short stint with the Magic, he was traded to the New York Knicks. Francis hit a sharp decline with the Knicks, and he found his way back onto the Houston Rockets roster for his final season, only at the age of 30. What ultimately caused the downfall and disappearance of Steve Francis was that he was not skilled enough to live up to his nickname the franchise, and single-handedly carry a team to the promised land. He was also too selfish of a player to be part of a contending team, or become a second option as he aged. As a result of this, Francis would not be seen in the NBA again. Penny Hardaway. Anthony "Penny" Hardaway is a special case. Though he stayed in the NBA for a long career, he was in the main spotlight of the league with all eyes on him, before injuries had their way with Penny in his career. Hardaway was a player that Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal told the Orlando Magic front office to draft, after Shaq played in a game of pickup basketball with the young Hardaway. He came out of the gates running, and took the NBA by storm. In his rookie season, Penny averaged 16 points, 6.6 assists, and 5.4 rebounds. Along with this, he made a name for himself on the defensive end by being an absolute pest for ball handlers. This led him to averaging 2.3 steals per game in his rookie year. After this season, Hardaway would make 4 consecutive All-Star games, and even knocked a Michael Jordan-led Bulls team out of the playoffs. However, in the finals, Penny and the Magic were swept by the Houston Rockets. After 6 seasons with the Magic, Hardaway was traded to the Phoenix Suns to join along with Jason Kidd, forming an elite backcourt. However, this would be the beginning of Penny disappearing from the spotlight. Injuries to both Hardaway and Kidd led the team to not spending much time on the court together. After 6 seasons with the Suns, Penny would join up with previously discussed STEPHON Marbury. Although Hardaway and the Knicks would make the playoffs, his production dipped drastically, as the injuries began to pile up and the athletic and explosive side of his game was unable to shine. Around this time, the spotlight on Penny was vastly dimming, and he was no more than a bench player. In 2006-2007, he retired. However, he came back from disappearance and in the 2007-2008 season played for the Miami Heat, where he only played in 16 games, but started 8 of them. After this season, he was never called back to play in the NBA, and disappeared from the league for another form of basketball. Now, Penny impacts the game by coaching at the University of Memphis. In his time with the team, he landed big-name recruit and possible number 1 overall pick James Wiseman for the Memphis program. Allen Iverson. The case of our next disappearance is one of the more confusing ones. Allen Iverson was seemingly shunned from the NBA. Statistically, he still had a lot to give to the game, averaging 13.8 points and making an All-Star game at the age of 34. It was officially stated that Iverson left the game to take care of his sick daughter. However, that still leaves us with many questions leading up to his disappearance. The first is, why did the 76ers let him go in the 2006-2007 season? Also, why was there no team to pick up AI after he was finished tending to his daughter? Even at his age, a player of his caliber would have been receiving calls from many NBA teams if there was not a deeper conspiracy at play. That could be the answer to Iverson's sudden disappearance. First, Iverson is arguably the best 76er of all time, alongside Hall of Famers like Julius Erving and Moses Malone. He carried one of the worst teams to make a finals to the championship series, and brought home an MVP award. Also, the impact that he had on the city of Philadelphia makes it so confusing as to why the 76ers would release him. The most logical explanation for the 76ers to release him would be the negative press that they had been getting after Iverson's iconic practice interview and his public beef with Sixers coach. However, once he was moved to the Nuggets, he once again uplifted the team. He and teammate Carmelo Anthony were the number 1 and number 2 scorers in the NBA. The only realistic expectation for the Nuggets would again be issues with coaching and negative press. He would be dealt to the Detroit Pistons. He averaged 17.4 points with the Pistons. After a season in Detroit, he was traded to the Memphis Grizzlies for Chauncey Billups, where he would play only in 3 games with the team. He was waived by the team and rejoined with the 76ers to finish his career. However, this was not enough to stop him. Iverson was the trailblazer for implementing hip-hop culture into the NBA, with the baggy clothing and jewelry. This had analysts, owners, and older NBA fans in an uproar. However, the younger generation loved it, and it propped Iverson up to legendary status. In the end, this is more than likely what caused Iverson to be barred from the league, and disappear from the spotlight for a substantial amount of time. Another explanation as his career came to an end was that Iverson would refuse to come off the bench and change his game as his skills declined. If he had, then there was a possibility that Iverson would have spent a much longer time in the NBA. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is possibly the greatest player of all time, so him being on this list may be a shock to most. However, there was a span of Jordan's career where he completely disappeared from the league on 2 occasions. He is the only player of his caliber that has completely stepped away from the game and came back. It is incredible to see that he could take an extended break from basketball and come back and dominate the league as if he never left. The first time that Jordan stepped away from the court had been the most traumatic time in his life. After the death of his father, the pressure of being an NBA star became too much. As a result of this, the owner, who was already friends with Michael Jordan, offered him the opportunity to make his childhood dreams of playing baseball come true. After a year in the minor leagues, Jordan went back to running the NBA, where he went on to have his second streak of winning 3 titles in a row. However, it was rumored that Jordan was suspended by the league for his constant gambling and partying, no matter the occasion. It would be a terrible look for the NBA to suspend the face of its league, so it is rumored that the NBA informed Jordan that he would be suspended, and him playing in the minor leagues was a front to cover up for the suspension. The second retirement came around after Jordan had issues with the Bulls front office, and the team fired head coach Phil Jackson. This was a man that Jordan had won 6 rings with, and had gone on the record saying he did not want to play for any other coach. However, in his official statement, Michael said that he had lost passion for the game, and wanted to spend more time with his family. In 2000, Jordan became a part owner of the Washington Wizards. They were a poor performing team at the time. Jordan, never being someone who could just sit by and be a part of the failure until he became the owner of the Hornets, trained himself back into playing shape after a year of owning the team. He came back for the 2001-2002 season. Jordan still played at an elite level, scoring at or above 20 points in both of his 2 seasons with the Wizards. Then Jordan ended his playing days. However, he did continue to stay in the NBA as an owner. He now owns the Charlotte Hornets. Final thoughts. The NBA can be a very cruel league that can leave its players out to dry for a profit, like we saw with Allen Iverson. It can also lead to new opportunities in faraway lands, like it did for STEPHON Marbury. The league can treat you like a commodity instead of part of a family, leaving you betrayed, like with LAMAR Odom. Injuries or your own doing can make you disappear from the league, like it did with Penny Hardaway and Steve Francis respectively. Also, personal tragedy can make you disappear from the bright lights of the league. No one is safe in the NBA. No matter how bright the star shines, it can burn out, and the player can disappear in the dark, never to be seen again. Stay tuned for more NBA content similar to this in the future.